Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hello and welcome to Quick Shot Reviews. As ever, I am your host Luke and you are the Cheap Shot Nation, and we're going to look at a film that is set at New Year or over the Christmas period. Bought out in 1989, it lasts approximately 1 hour and 40 minutes, and it is a sequel to Ghostbusters, and therefore it is named Ghostbusters 2. There's a lot to love about this film. There's also a few niggles that I have with this film, and one of the major ones is the actual logo itself. Yet fine for the movie poster, but what's the reason that they had to put it all over the suits and everything as well? I guess it was... yeah. Anyway, I know what I was going to say, but I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to leave that to the main part of the video, because we're going to go through everything there is to love about Ghostbusters 2, a little bit of the history of Ghostbusters 2, and the few niggles that I have with Ghostbusters 2. If you're joining us, you're obviously a movie fan yourself, so why not stick around? We're going to go into the intro now, and we'll go into the main part of the video straight after that, so please join us there. Ghostbusters 2, a 1989 film directed by Ivan Reitman and written by Ivan Reitman. He was brought in to basically bring the stories of Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 together, because they were absolutely nuts when Dan Aykroyd had his fingers on him on his own. That's where Harold Ramis came in, and Ivan Reitman brought him back down to earth, so to speak. Like I say, Ghostbusters 2. It's also written by Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd. I almost called him Dan Stantz then. That would have been a weird crossover, wouldn't it? Still want to try some of his Crystal Skull vodka, actually. That is an advert that needs to be watched if you can find it. Anyway, let's get back on to Ghostbusters 2. Ghostbusters 2 is set 5 years after the sequel. We start with Dana walking down the street. Some ooze comes out of the floor, and it's inconspicuous. I mean, ooze, pink ooze, this time, rather than sort of ectoplasm, which we know of, which is sort of snotty and green from Slimer. The buggy that she's walking down the street with, containing her son Oscar, who the buggy then gets sent on a wild ride to the middle of First Avenue in New York, just missing a bus, and then we get the credits. Where is all this going? Who knows? But it leaves it on a cliffhanger, you wanting to see more. And that's one thing that Ghostbusters really does do well. Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. That first scene sets most things up, ready to go. I think of the two in the box, Ghostbusters 1 did this part much better. It was elongated, it was better, and it just built the story up a little bit more. If you're a Ghostbusters fan, you would have known what was going to happen in Ghostbusters. If you're still a Ghostbusters fan, you wouldn't quite know what was going off in Ghostbusters 2. Apart from it was Ghostbusters 2 and it still had Dana Barrett in it. So, Yeah, it's a different story. It follows the same lines, and that's one of the controversies, one of the criticisms that people have about this movie. It is not one of mine. Well, let's go. Let's go with the official description. The discovery of a massive river of ectoplasm and a resurgence of spectral activity allows the staff of Ghostbusters to revive the business. I suppose that's a roundabout way of saying things. It doesn't really get you going, but like I say, it is 5 years after the events of the first one. They got sued. They're now trying to claw everything back. The Ecto One is spitting out smoke. They're going to children's birthday parties to try and make some money, try and get something out of all this equipment that they've got. Ray owns a bookshop. Winston's just sort of there, like he is in the first one, which is a damn shame because I would say he is my favourite character out of the whole Ghostbusters franchise anyway, including the cartoon itself. And Egon is back at university doing weird experiments with puppies and rooms that are made more warmer as they go along, and seeing if human emotions can change the atmosphere in a room and all that kind of stuff. That actually leads more to what the film is about and the mood slime, which is the thing that the film, the underlying story of the film, literally it's underlying underneath New York. But there's a lot to love about this film. The setup is great. I love it. Always wanted the River of Slime as a toy, but I don't think they ever bought one out. I don't even know. Slimer is more like he is in the cartoon, and this is where the two films are completely separate, because you had the first film, it was very adult themes, lots of ghosts, so it was quite scary as well, especially for kids. And then you had Ghostbusters 2, which was 5 years after it had the cartoon that was going through many iterations at this time, the toys and all that kind of stuff. And then Ghostbusters 2 came out, and basically Ghostbusters 2 was a live action version of the cartoon. Something that it was way ahead of its time on, because we're now getting live action versions of cartoons when you think of Disney. Ghostbusters did it in 1989. Genius. So why not make the film a PG? Why not use it to sell toys? The only other toys that were coming out that were based on films around this time were Batman, which was very adult, and was it Terminator they had toys for? It certainly did with RoboCop. RoboCop's not a kid's film, but they made toys of it and they tried to make it commercial. Now, all the way through Ghostbusters 2, it's from sort of just before Christmas to New Year when it sort of finishes, which is why I chose this film as my New Year's film. Happy New Year, as it were. And I love it. Absolutely love it. This is a yearly thing for me where I watch Ghostbusters 2 from the first minute to the last minute. There's a few bits in there, like I say, why have the Ghostbusters 2 logo plastered all over everything? But thinking about it now, it's done and it's set in the 80s. So it's very much a satire of what the 80s was, living in excess, selling things, making adverts on free TV, the cable access TV show that Venkman has, The World of the Psychic, absolutely brilliant. Having one psychic actually predict the end of the world, or the perceived end of the world, accurately, which led to the end of the film. I'm sorry if you haven't seen this film, but do go and watch it. If you like the first one, you'll love this one. and then another completely nutty psychic predicting that the end of the world would be February 14th in the year 2016. Thankfully, we're over 6 years past that date, and I lived through it, so that was good. But yeah, two completely contrasting psychics there, and she got told that by an alien. And she just had one that just had a book, and the other one that was completely nutty, and it just made me crease. Also, things that I've never noticed in this film before as well. Little things that if you pay attention, you can see them in the background. Peter has the Ghostbusters newspaper, one of the Ghostbusters newspapers from the first one. It's where they're all wearing the grey coats and they stood outside 8 Hook and Ladder on his wall. I've never noticed that before, ever. There's also a little bit at the end where it says, please keep away from flames. And this is in the museum. Please keep away from flames. And there's candles lit all the way across it because they're conducting a vigil, obviously. You have a villain in Vigo, which is a painting where a living god lives in this painting, referenced in the Ghostbusters video game. Love it. Interesting fact about Vigo, it was someone else who played the character physically, and then they had to put a voice over the top, much like Darth Vader. They had to put a voice over the top because Wilhelm von Homburg couldn't speak very good English, but he had the look. He was also an ex-professional wrestler, which also interests me in terms of that. Sadly, he's died. He took his own life. But there you go. He was also a twin, I believe, which, interestingly enough, Oscar is a twin. The baby who plays Oscar is a twin as well. So we have the usual cast in this film. Bill Murray playing Dr. Peter Venkman, Dan Aykroyd playing Dr. Raymond Stantz, Sigourney Weaver playing Dana Barrett. We have Harold Ramis playing Dr. Egon Spengler, Rick Moranis playing Lewis Tully, Ernie Hudson playing Winston Zedmore, Annie Potts playing Janine Milners. We've got Peter McNichol giving a performance which is completely over the top and absolutely hilarious as Dr. Janos Pohar. We've got Harry Julin as the judge right at the beginning in the courtroom scene where we see the Scoleri brothers. David McGillis plays the mayor of New York. Kurt Fuller is the Walter Peck of Ghostbusters 2, which is why a lot of people say this follows the same sequence, basically. Playing Hardemeyer, and like I say, Willem von Homburg playing Vigo. We've got William T. Duschenberg playing Baby Oscar, and Henry J. Duschenberg playing Baby Oscar. So they had two babies playing the one baby, so they wouldn't get tired or overexposed or whatever. I can't remember which one of those died. Or I think it was Henry. It was Henry. So William is still about, but it was Henry Duschenberg that took his own life in 2017. So it wasn't actually that long ago, about 5 years. Sad times. Anyway, we'll go back here. Wilhelm von Homburg, who played Vigo, died in 2004, aged 63. Lots of people no longer with us who were in this film. But I absolutely adore this film from start to finish. The history that they they used to create this storyline. The pneumatic transit system where the River of Slime is, that was actually a thing. The train on the tracks that goes through Winston, the ghost train, not an actual train that would have been travelling on those tracks. Remember, this is an underground track, but there was an underground train that did crash around about the time of 1920, where Egon says it's the city of Albany, the United Transit. It wasn't. As you can tell from the train itself, it is not something that would travel on the underground even in 1920. The train itself actually looks more 1800s. So it would have been like sort of Wild West sort of era. And there was a lot of train crashes obviously then because it was a new technology. So little things, but like I say, the pneumatic transit system, that's there. They used a lot of places that are very obvious in New York. You've got the Statue of Liberty walking, you've got Jackie Wilson singing Your Love Keeps Lifting Me Higher. What a song. And the soundtrack, we're going in 80s, end of 80s, early 90s. The soundtrack is just phenomenal in Ghostbusters 2. There's so much to love about Ghostbusters 2 and still so much to pick out. But I choose to pick out the good stuff. It is funny. It is a nod to the original as well. It's the same characters reprising their roles, playing them in a very similar way, but slightly more adult, where they're not fully adult, but they're more like teenagers now rather than 12-year-olds. And it's got that little playful nod to just the whole growing up process, even though they're adults in their 30s. And it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I loved every minute of it when I've watched it. If you have watched Ghostbusters 2, please give us your thoughts on it, because my thoughts on it will always be that it's just as good as the first one, but it's in a different way. They changed things subtly. They got rid of Winston's mustache. They stopped them from smoking. Little things like that. Although Ray does have a pipe right at the beginning. Little nods to New York. All sorts of things going off in this film, which, if you sit back and you watch it, it's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Love it. Absolutely love it. If you're a Ghostbusters fan and you've not seen Ghostbusters 2, why not watch it? It's on streaming sites and just enjoy yourself with it. Don't go in comparing it to the first one. It's not the first one. It follows a very similar story, but it is not the first one. Go watch it. That's my advice. Happy New Year. And I will see you next time on Quick Shot Reviews, where hopefully we'll get back into the cinema, despite the fact that Avatar: The Way of Water is still playing. I will watch that at some point. I'm not giving up on it completely, but I'm not going to go to the cinema to watch it. Not unless I need a nap, of course. But that's one of those things, isn't it? Right, I'm going to leave you there. This has been a very long video / podcast, because I've got so much love for this film. It's unbelievable. Absolutely love this film. Yeah, I'm going to leave you there. Keep watching films. Enjoy 2023. Happy New Year. And goodbye from Quick Shot Reviews.